Well, first of all, thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, buddy.
Like, I really
Excited for you,
appreciate it.
man.
Like, I know
Excited
we
to do
talked about
this.
this for like maybe a month and a half ago, but like I mentioned, just a chill conversation. I have to stop saying that because I say that at the beginning of every episode, chill conversation. But anyways, welcome to the Table
It
604
is. It is a chill
podcast.
conversation.
I really appreciate you hopping on. And, when we first met, I believe, actually reached out to you because I was trying to sell you our lobster oil. Which you'll see the ad shortly. I'm joking, but no, yeah, that's the first time we met.
Conveniently placed.
Yeah,
right here.
community place
Yeah.
right there. But no, I just wanted to, this whole episode or this whole podcast, the theme is like, learning a little bit more about like, business owners in the food industry. And I really liked your energy. Like, I really do like it. And you're a really funny guy. And
Thanks, buddy.
and I just wanted to share the story behind Seven Seas. And I know you started working that at a young age, and obviously your family started it. Like, it's a long story, right? So I thought it'd be cool for you to come on, talk about it and then talk about your childhood and how you got into it.
Thanks,
pretty
bro.
much.
And I don't want this to be one-sided because I'm curious about your side a little bit too, with your
Okay.
dad and cannery and
For sure, yeah.
how you guys came up with the lobster oil and what your role is kind
Yeah.
of with that now and how that all comes together. But
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
man. No, just super stoked to be here and happy to share whatever. So
Cool, yeah. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, like you being, like, where are you from? Like, I don't even know if you're from Vancouver, and then after we can maybe transition into like Seven Seas and how it started and your experience with it. Just go from there.
yeah, sure. So from Ladner. I was born downtown, but Greater Vancouver. Dad came from Greece. He was So my dad's dad was a commie in Greece.
Okay.
And after World War II, I believe there was some shady stuff going on with I don't know if it was the Italians or I think it was the Germans were occupying the island that he was from called Skopelos. And they captured him, and they had threatened to kill him, and threatened to kill my dad, who was the oldest of his four children. And we're kind of piecing together different stories and things that we've heard. So anyway, for whatever reason, they let him go, and I can only imagine that was probably in the middle of the night. And first thing in the morning, he was on the next boat out, and he went over to Marseille. Somehow got to Marseille, France. Was a stowaway on some sort of a boat going to Cuba. Lived in the engine room secretly on this boat to Cuba for like 6 weeks. Rats nibbled off the bottom earlobes of his ears, and I think a bit of his nose too, or something. And when he got there, he didn't have papers. He was a WAP, right? He was without papers. He was totally illegal, and he faked appendicitis. So goes the story. Got it taken out, healed, and then escaped to the mainland of the USA.
Great
And
story.
he somehow made his way over to Seattle, Washington, obviously, and met up with the Lamberis boys, who are some other Greek Skopelos guys from the island. They have an oyster farm, and he started working for them. And I think he was a fisherman in Greece. He started doing a bunch of fishing here in Vancouver Island and saved up enough dough to bring the family over. And so my dad, we figure he probably came in around 1960.
Wow.
And he would have been about 20, 21 years old. Young, handsome dude, and working in the mills. He remembers a story of when he was working in the mills, and because it was unionized, and a bunch of the workers were like, hey, don't work so hard. But his history was because he was the oldest of the four children, and his dad was gone for 5-10 years. So he had to earn the income for his family to live and eat. And so he was working for the army building roads on the island of the occupation army of, who I think it was the Germans, the Nazis. Or no, they were destroyed in the war. So I don't know. I don't know exactly who was, or maybe it was the Greek army, the Americans or something. I don't know.
Some
Anyway,
army.
he was working for them, and just busting his balls, and so that's what he knew. He came from a steady work habit, and he was like, I don't know how else not to work to these union workers, right? And so he was doing fishing, and then one day he had a dream to open up a fish market. He, I guess because he was on the boats and he knew the price of what they were selling spring salmon for, like 99 cents a pound to like these markets in Vancouver. Crazy, right? and he was like, oh gosh, like he knew that it wasn't costing them that much in the boats, and he saw an opportunity, but he didn't have, like, I don't even think he had a bank account. Like, it was like, pretty helter-skelter. So there was one Greek guy who believed in him. His name was Gus. And I think it was Gus. Or no, it was Yeah, Gus. The Greek name for Gus and Constantine is Gus, and he like hooked him up with some people to the banks, and then also loaned him some money, and then he found the spot here on 4th, 2328 West 4th Avenue, and opened up with his his brother-in-law, and his dad were all helping him.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's where it started. Then that was 1966. By 1974, they built and opened the plant in Ladner.
Right.
So they were doing processing out of there, and one of their big businesses out of there was sockeye salmon. So they were right on the river. Boats would come up every day and unload sockeye, and they would process it and sell it in the markets. And I think over the 20 years that they did that, a lot of went to Japan. They did a lot of salmon caviar, ikura, and black cod, halibut. I mean, you name it, local West Coast fish.
Right.
And then in '95, the Atlantic salmon started up because really big time, even though it was kind of already here, because the sockeye salmon crashed.
Mm-hmm. So what made it, like, what happened? Do you know, or
it's
like
probably a combination of things, right? Mismanagement and probably weather, and what are the
bunch of different, like, I don't know,
the atmospheric warming,
global warming,
and the acidity in the ocean. Probably just a factor,
everything.
like a perfect storm, like. And it was just a shit couple of years, and then it was like, it was actually terrible. And I think 2002 it kind of started coming back a little bit, but it's never really recovered. Like apparently, like North America, like everywhere, just was full of salmon, and now it's like all the logging trails. They would basically drive these trucks up the little creeks where the salmon would spawn, and like all these rivers have been destroyed, especially in BC. But like North America is just. They just destroyed all the salmon habitat, right? Yeah. So it's really sad. But anyway, so that's kind of like a brief history of the starting of the company. And yeah, so I grew up in that. I have 4 brothers. We bleed fish. I remember I was 7 years old in the fish plant, and I had these sunglasses on one day, and I was like feeling cool, and these Chinese guys who were working upstairs in the smokehouse, like doing the smoked salmon slicing and all that. They're like, "Oh, look at that! He's like Tom Cruise or something," like some. I was like, "Oh yeah!" Like felt like a Hollywood actor. I felt so good, and that's one of my first memories there. But
right, and then I was gonna say, so like, can you explain a little bit more, like, what is a smokehouse, maybe for people that don't know what that is, like?
Yeah, and that's a great question. There's too much up here that I don't like. Yeah, need to be able to share this information with people, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So a smokehouse is essentially a dedicated area to, in this case, smoking salmon. So the process for that would be making sure that you have a fillet of salmon. You'd probably want to debone it first. You marinate it with your spice, seasoning, mix, whatever. Let it sit for 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, whatever it is. Rinse off the spice and then smoke it for probably about 8 hours. Wow. So we had a industrial smoker would fit probably about 2,000 pounds of fish at a time. And then they would pull off I remember they had these like iron clamps. They would pull off the skin, because once it's smoked, you can kind of skin it like that. And it's like you've probably seen like one of those Facebook videos where they pour the boiling water on the skin and it just peels off. It's kind of like that, but anyway, so they pull that off and then kind of trim off a little bit of the fat that's attached to the skin area, and then slice it, put it on a board, vacuum seal it, label it, and refreeze it.
Okay.
So usually the best temperature for that is -2 Celsius for the slicing.
Okay.
Because if it's too frozen, it's the slicer won't work, or if it's too thawed, it'll kind of mush up all the meat. So it's got to be like it's freaking.
It's like a science.
It's a science, bro.
Yeah.
So today we have a plant in Richmond. It's a 30,000 square foot plant. We have 2 industrial smokers, and they're just going full tilt. Like we can't keep up, and yeah, we've got like tempering freezers to keep it at that -2 Celsius, and we've got a marinating cooler, and then like a slicing room, and like I should have you come by sometime, man.
That'd be sick to see, actually.
Yeah,
it's still actively working right now. Like,
yeah.
Wow. And how is it like as a business? Like, is it doing pretty well? Like, is it like okay. And who are you guys selling that to, like stores and like the Lower Mainland, or is there like big like wholesalers? Like, how do you guys work with the?
Yeah, so we were selling a lot to Costco, and as the prices of salmon have gone up, they didn't want to allow us to make more money from what it wasn't my account, and I don't understand the full scope, but they don't like raising their prices for their clients. But there's freaking this thing called inflation. So it's like, what's going to happen? Somebody's got to give.
Yeah.
It's either the customer's going to give, the supplier's going to give, or Costco's going to give. And they work off of razor thin margins as is. So it didn't make sense for us to do that business anymore. Maybe we'll do more business in the future. I don't know. Would love to, but it's got to make sense for everybody, right?
For sure. Yeah, there's like it has to be fair for both parties, right?
Yeah, and we did a lot to superstores and Loblaws and all that.
Whoa, that's crazy. That's like quite the partnership to work with all these big companies. Like, that's interesting. And so when did you, like, tell us a little bit more about you? Like, you know, what were you like as a child? Like, how was growing up with like this kind of family? You have 4 other brothers, where were you in that? Like the oldest, the youngest? Like, tell us more about your history.
I was first in the pecking order, but 4th born. No, I'm just kidding. Totally joking. No, that's a good one. Yeah, no, I was the 4th. Okay, so my 3rd brother has Down syndrome. Okay, Jerry, and I think my mom just, you know, being overloaded, having 4 boys at that point. Often neglected me, you know, out of love. Like, you know, I don't know, like, she was there for me too. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want to like play a violin here or anything, but you know, having a special needs brother 2 years older than me, I probably did, you know. So basically, where I'm going with that is, rather than giving me a lot of presents, right? CE, she gave me presents, TS, or like, you know, for going out and I was acting up a little bit, she'd just say, "Here, take the freaking chocolate bar and shut up."
Right.
Kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
So eventually this got to my head where I had this sort of syndrome where I was like, you know, I want that. And you know, I look back on it and I'm like, man, it's really, it's not healthy to have a child that's spoiled like that. But that was me. And it's you know, I feel like I've worked through a lot of that, I hope.
Yeah.
But you know, that was it. And then I had a younger brother, 8 years younger. And by that point, like, that was really the definitive thing for me when I had a younger brother come along. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to be like the youngest. Like, that was my identity.
Right.
I was the youngest. You know, at 8, you don't really know you're spoiled, but I knew I was spoiled, you know. But that was sort of the big mile marker that started changing things. And then right from the age of 12, I mean, I was big into video games, and I was kind of like, I was really shy growing up. Pretty shy, I would say. Big into video games, TV, like that was kind of my babysitter, you know. And then once I was 12, I worked that summer, and I enjoyed it, but I could tell I was like, I wasn't quite fit for it.
What was your first job?
I was cleaning salmon on a processing line.
Okay, hey, you gotta start some way. Come on.
So I was like, literally, there would be fish, like hundreds and hundreds of fish going by on this processing line. I'd take one. I had this spoon that was connected to a hose, and I would spoon out the bloodline behind like the lungs and all that. So that stuff was already ripped out. Somebody would, slice the bloodline, and then I would take that spoon with the water coming out and I'd just clean it out, put it on the little thing, and that's it. And it was supposed to take like 5 seconds of fish. That was like the goal. Yeah. Should take more than 5 seconds, right? So that was the first job. I did that 5 times that summer. And then the next summer I actually went to Greece the whole summer. And then when I was 14, I came back and I worked like, I don't know, probably not the whole summer, but probably like a month and a half.
Wow, which is almost the whole summer.
And then I started working at the store every weekend. And I basically worked every weekend from then until right through high school, right through university.
Yeah.
I never really stopped after that. Summers, holidays, Christmas, New Year's, it was a busy time.
Why did you keep coming back? Like to the store?
Yeah, you know, like, it's interesting because, like, I don't know if I ever really felt like I had a choice. It was kind of like, you know, free labor for my dad, kind of, but I was paid. I was like my first gig. I got paid. My first paycheck was $6 an hour.
Okay.
And then I think they bumped me to $6.25 pretty soon after because they probably thought that was a little bit too low. Right?
Different times.
Different times. Yeah, that's going back. That just reminded me of the old manager too. She was like this crazy white lady.
Let's hear about that if you don't mind sharing that with
Dolores.
Us. Let's hear about Dolores.
She was just like, it was so funny because my dad was quite animated too, and like just a character and always yelling in Greek, and you couldn't understand him, and he'd like just be cussing like crazy. And then like I guess Dolores was kind of like trained up the same way. So like either one of those two would come down to the plant floor where all the fish is being cut and processed, like, you know, probably what would that be like? Probably like 20,000 pounds a day of salmon or something like that. And they'd come down and they'd be like, get them out. There'd be forklifts whirring around and people would be grading fish. It's just like this chaotic environment. You'd have guts all on the floor that get cleaned up at the end of the day, like bloody guts from the fish. And like, it's just a zoo, right? And they would come down and they'd be like fucking pulling their hair out, like yelling at people, like, do that fucking. It's like it was a scene, bro. It's not like that anymore. But it was definitely an experience.
Damn, that's crazy. And then how long did she work with Dolores? How long did you work with her?
just at the plant.
At the plant? Is she still there right now?
I pretty much just worked it. No. Just pretty much in the summers, like, 94 through 98. Because then 98, 99, I started working more prevalently at the store.
Right.
The shop there.
Interesting. Yeah. And then so, you said you were working during the weekends. Like, was it like... Did you feel like, I know you said you kind of felt like obligated, but like, what was that like? Like, when did you start working there consistently? Like, how old or what grade were you in roughly, if you remember?
Like on the weekends?
Yeah, on the weekends.
Yeah, right after I was 14. So what was that? Grade 8?
Grade 8, yeah. Or grade 9.
Grade 8.
Grade 8? 14,
yeah,
grade 8?
because I did my 13th year, would have been 1995.
Okay.
So that was the summer I was in Greece. The following summer, so it probably would have been, maybe it was grade 9.
I think it was grade 9.
Yeah. You're right. I think
because grade 8, I think I was 13, or it could have been grade 8 actually. What month were you born? It depends what month.
I'm July.
Yeah, so maybe it was more 9th grade. Anyways, doesn't matter. But
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was like what would you do the day to day? Like how did it because obviously like you worked there for
store?
quite a while. Yeah, like you worked there for quite a while.
I was just a clerk. Okay. I would just serve people over the counter. I learned how to clean snapper, like local snapper.
Is that hard to clean or is that
not really? But they got spines,
right?
And you can get poked.
Yeah.
And so you got to cut off the spines, open up the belly, clean out the guts, take out the gills. The gills can be spiky too, especially if it's a bigger fish, and descale it.
Right.
And so, I remember there was like some clients and they only wanted me to clean the fish. And I don't know why. You. Yeah, like specifically one dude I remember, like this older Greek guy. He wanted me to do it. And like it made me feel important, but I was also like, why? Like I didn't think I was that good, but maybe this guy and it kind of built a little confidence for me. And I was like, oh wow, like this guy wants me to do it. Like, wow. For like a 13, 14-year-old boy, like it's like, oh, cool.
For sure. It'd be kind of cool to, get a request for someone, like a random customer, or not random, but a regular maybe at this point, to come like, oh, I want Jamie to do that for me. That's interesting. Yeah. And then, so like, tell us a little bit more about like, what it's like kind of like running like that operation, because you're there all the time now. I feel like you're always working, right? So
yeah,
kind of, right? So like, what was like, when did you start maybe being more, because you said you only worked during the weekends at the beginning, like when did you get a little bit more involved, like within, like when did it start being like
within the company?
Yeah.
So that job I was mostly just a clerk. I mean, I even remember grade 11 or grade 12, I feel like grade 11, like midway through grade 11 I started raving.
Okay.
And I didn't do it that often. Grade 11, grade 12 I stepped it up, right? But I remember coming into work sometimes on like a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'd be tweaked out, like, we'd be playing Z95 or something. I'd be like buzzing a little bit, like still tweaked from the from the fun times the night before. And it was fun though. It was like a fun vibe, and then once I graduated from high school, I actually took a year off after high school. I did Langara for a semester. That was a joke.
Okay, what'd you do?
I did terrible.
But what did you
it's just in general studies. Okay. But like I got like D's and E's. I don't know. Is he integrate? It's terrible, bro.
It's
like,
all about trying things out.
It was so bad that I couldn't even get any classes in the second semester.
Okay.
So I said, to hell with this. And sorry, I think I actually no. I did 1 year off completely, and then the following September I did a semester at Langara. Did terrible. And then said, to hell with this. And then I re-engaged my grade 12. I did like Vancouver School Board, upgraded my grade 12, and then applied to UBC without them telling them that I went to Langara. And then I got into UBC. So it was that year after high school, I started working kind of more as like a safety coordinator. Like I started doing I was kind of like assisting the production manager and helping them with some initiatives.
Like what kind? What do you mean by
Like I remember,
manager?
like so there was docks in the back of that plant, right?
Okay.
So I got some like chicken wire
Okay.
to put it on the thing for like safety, so that people don't slip on the wooden
Yeah, on the dock. Yeah.
thing. Now, mind you, for 40 years it was like that. I don't know. It probably wasn't necessary, but like little things like that, and just working and doing a lot the fish processing and stuff. And then kind of come the winter, there was this Japanese guy who wanted to help us do salmon caviar for export to Japan and stuff like that. So I had already done some caviar production because we had an egg room. It's called an egg room. It's like a room dedicated to making caviar, like salmon caviar.
So while we're on that topic, before we forget, like, can you tell us, like, because I don't know what it is, and probably other people want to. What is an egg room? Like,
it's a salmon egg processing room. So, so he came along. I'll share with you the process, but he basically took me under his wing and taught me like kind of the specifics of how to do it. So I kind of had this like ikura sensei. Okay. Ikura is the Japanese word for salmon eggs.
Okay, ikura. Okay.
Like if you ever go sushi place, you order the ikura, you're gonna get a little piece of rice with some seaweed around it and some eggs on top, right? So he kind of taught me the ropes, like the detailed ropes, like the kind of the science behind it, sort of unofficially. But so basically, first thing is you take the roe sack, you open it, and then you put it on some sort of a wire mesh. Or in our case, we developed a special kind of netting to allow for a higher recovery, so getting more yield. And then they would kind of like float down this like thing into this bin, getting rid of all the broken eggshells on the way, because it would kind of grip the eggshells, and the good ones would slide down. And then we would dump that into an agitator. So there's this big drum, this hollow drum with salt water in it, basically. So the idea is that it's supposed to be 100% brine, but it's very hard to get 100% brine unless it's like sitting for days and it's stirring, and like, so it's usually like 98 to 99% brine. The more the better. And then so you put these eggs in for about 6 minutes. They'll agitate around with, there's like a little propeller at the bottom that agitates it. And then once they're ready, and it depends on the maturity of the egg, like the thickness and the hardness of the shell, because it'll allow more salt to go in or less salt depending on the thickness and the maturity. So when the fish was caught, if it's a July fish or versus October's more late season, so it'll be like thinner shells. So like there's all this stuff in it. So once it's done, you pull it out with baskets and drain all the water from the eggs. So you'd want to keep as much water in that agitator as possible, because there's salt in there, because salt costs money. You want to keep your costs down, so you don't want to use excess salt if you don't need to. And then you sort through all like the little like grimy junky bits. So we call it junk. It was like little pieces of membrane from the roe sack that were still attached to the individual eggs. You got to like separate those out, sort through them. And then we had a drying machine. So it's just like a centrifugal force, kind of like your average dryer, except there's no heat. But it would just like centrifugally force the eggs out. We would put them in sacks. It would like get rid of as much moisture as possible. The old way they would do it was they would just let them sit overnight in a basket with all the salt. It's totally fine. So you dry it, and then you just pack it in a little 1 kilo bento box, or maybe it's not called a bento box, I can't remember, but it's like a little 1 kilo plastic tub. And then stamp it, put a little plastic sheet on there, put a little love, give it a kiss, send it off,
Oh, interesting.
Minus the kiss.
When's the last time because this was a while ago, right? I think, like, how long ago was that?
That was 2000.
Wow, okay. So
2000 or 2001?
Hold on, 87, so it's like 5. I'm not good at math. Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Fucking old.
No, you're not old. You look great.
So old.
You look great. Don't worry about it. So what happened to that guy? Does he still work with you guys?
I don't know. His name was Kaz.
Kaz?
I don't know what happened to Kaz. I think he found a Russian lady.
Okay.
And eloped. And he pieced the fuck out.
Okay, he just left.
Yeah, never heard from him since.
Well, one-way ticket and never left. This episode is brought to you by Olive and Ciboulette Lobster Oil. What is lobster oil, you ask? It's pretty much an olive oil, except it's lobster infused. So if you're a seafood lover, if you want to put it on pasta dishes, salad dressing, sauces, you can saute with it. Or you can keep it simple, put it with some balsamic vinaigrette, some lobster oil, and a nice warm baguette. You can find us at www.oliveandciboulette.com.
I started doing deliveries. So I started, I actually also got a job at Starbucks.
Okay.
They fired me after 3 months because I was late a couple times. They're like, no nonsense about being late because of the driving job.
Okay.
Mind you, I was like super late one morning. I did like a 5 a.m. shift. But yeah, no, it was good. I started driving the White Rock route.
What's that like? The
It was just like doing the White Rock strip. Yeah, I was just doing the deliveries along the strip. But a lot of those places didn't open till like 11. So, and I'd be like on the road by like 9. So like I specifically remember this one day where I was late at Starbucks because I was like trying to bang off these orders and make my shift. And I was like talking to the plant manager at the time. This was at our distribution facility at it was at Kent and Southeast Marine area. Like what was that? Kent and Crompton.
Okay.
The Crompton location. I think there's a squid plant there now.
Squid plant.
Yeah, it stinks. It's terrible.
Have you been in one before?
Squid plant?
Yeah.
No. I can't imagine it'd be like, I mean, stinky for sure, but
I'm a big calamari guy. I don't think it'd be a good idea for me to go in there, I guess.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're still there actually.
Interesting.
I don't know. They were doing like a fire dusted calamari thing. Maybe they are. I have no idea. But anyway, yeah, delivering to White Rock. And so I was talking to this guy, this manager. I'm like, hey man, like, I don't know if I'm gonna finish in time. Like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta hit my other job. He's like, no, you gotta do your deliveries first. And I'm thinking, fuck, this is my family business. Like, I need to do these deliveries, but I'm definitely gonna be late. So I called them and stuff, but I was still late. But anyway, I remember that time. Yeah, doing a bunch of deliveries on the White Rock Strip, man.
Yeah.
Lots of little teeny boppers working as waitresses over there.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Interesting.
That was my first route.
And then, so what were you delivering? Just like orders, pretty much, or like what was?
Yeah, like salmon, tuna, halibut, prawns.
Okay.
The main things.
And I know this might be a silly question, but is seafood like do you like seafood? Do you love it? Is it your?
Bro, I got some ahi tuna in my car right now. Gotta saute that up tonight.
Oh yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna make with it?
Just basic, just salt and oil. Just saute it for like 45 seconds each side.
That's the best.
Eat a blue rare.
I always remember I used to work on this train called the Rocky Mountaineer. I want the train that goes.
You worked on the Rocky Mountaineer?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yeah. I was onboard host for 2 seasons.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was
pretty fun.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But I always remember we had a tuna on the menu. Like typically tuna, you eat it like literally rare, right? You saute and that's it, right? Like 10, 15, 45 seconds.
Oh, they overcooked the fuck out of it?
No, they didn't. But I always remember there's this one lady that's like, oh, like I want the ahi tuna, but like I want it like really well cooked. I'm like, I don't know if you really want. I remember
probably from the East Coast.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if you really want to eat that. She's like, no, I want it like that. I was like, all right, I'm just letting you know. Usually
it's like cardboard.
Yeah,
it's like eating cardboard.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
so weird.
But it is what it is. I guess she's just not really full. She doesn't like fish that much. If that's how you really like to eat it, I guess, right?
Yeah,
but
probably.
Interesting. So after your deliveries, like when did you start working like full time at Seven Seas?
Full time. So I ended up taking 3 years off after high school.
Okay, so what'd you do? So you took a year off?
So I did that Ikura technician thing.
Right.
And then I was delivery driving, but then I also started I was still working part-time. So I think somewhere around that time, I started working Saturdays at the distribution warehouse. So I moved away from the store at some point and started basically learning how to pack orders. So like styrofoam boxes, Joe customer wants 10 pounds of halibut fillets, 10 pounds of sockeye fillets, 20 pounds of mussels. And so I'd, put that in a box, throw some ice in there, strap it up, label it, and then put it on the pallet so that the next truck would take it. So that was kind of learning how to do that while I was upgrading. Trying to think if there was anything else I was doing there. So I think... Yeah, I think that was basically it. I was learning how to pack orders those couple of years. And then once I must have... No, because I think I was too young to do consistent driving at that point.
Okay.
So I think I just started learning how to pack orders in the warehouse. And then once I started at UBC in 2003, then I started doing a delivery route up to Whistler.
Okay, that's cool.
So I started doing the Whistler route every Saturday. And so I'd be delivering up to the Barefoot, Raxi, 21 Steps, can't remember what are some of those old school restaurants, the Rimrock.
Oh, Rimrock.
What else? I don't know if Needle Lake was there then. I don't think it was. Nestor's. Nestor's has always been a big seafood mover.
So you'd go there for like a day kind of thing, or like how would that?
Yeah,
how would
yeah.
that work?
Drive up in the morning, do the drops, get back down by like 3, 4, 5 p.m. Depending on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you did that for a while, and then like so.
That was my next route. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that for at least a year, and yeah, just kind of like worked my way into the distribution. So by the time I graduated in '08 with a useless fucking history degree, I basically moved right into an operational coordinating manager type role for the distribution services. So like basically restaurants and all that, like overseeing all the orders, and then like overseeing the truck guys and kind of like learning, kind of growing in that business, right? And then within, I basically did that type of role for 5 years and just kind of took more and more responsibility. And then 2013, I was actually looking to go do an MBA.
Okay.
I wanted to do an MBA. I thought it would be the right thing to do. And in 2013, we actually, under my brother's leadership, we bought a company named Pasco. And that was a whole can of worms. But with the addition of Pasco and their business, we effectively doubled our business like overnight. And one of the things that we got with the Pasco acquisition was distribution of all the Thrifties retail shops on the island. And we currently weren't distributing on the island. And then at 27 Thrifties.
Well, on the island?
On the island.
27?
27, yeah.
A lot.
I think they've sold some off since, it was like 5 years ago. I think Loblaws bought them. Was it Loblaws? Yeah, I think Loblaws bought, Sobe Group. Loblaws.
Yeah.
Bought Thrifties, and then because I think they own some other things, so there was like 2 competing grocery stores near it. So they sold or shut a couple down, like Safeway or whatever. And then so that was 2013. So it was like basically I had this choice. It was either because I didn't, I want to grow more, and I felt like I wasn't growing that current role as the operations manager. So it was either go do an MBA and learn some stuff about business, or kind of the option was go to the island and start doing sales, knocking on doors, and get some restaurants so that we could fill up our trucks and make it more worthwhile to actually do business on the island. And so that was kind of, I don't know if it was the right decision now looking back, but that's what we did. I moved over to Victoria, and
You moved completely to go to Victoria?
I'm
Whoa.
fucking up and moved to Victoria, and I did that for about a year and a half. And I think I opened about 100 accounts. 20 to 25 of them were like pretty good. And basically just like, I felt like I was a bit of a brand ambassador. Like it was a sales role, and I was selling fish. I was putting in orders and stuff, but like I was like basically introducing people to our company.
Right.
For like a year and a half.
Yeah,
I was
brand
like,
ambassador, I would say.
yeah, knocking on doors, pounding pavement. So that was kind of that role. And then we were kind of able to find some other people there, and so I was able to come back over here and help out with the Whistler route, doing sales there and working my way downtown. And then, I basically did sales for 7 years for restaurants.
Wow.
Mostly like, so Victoria, Whistler, and downtown.
Okay. And like, so tell us a little bit more about like that journey, like in Victoria, like what's been like the wins. Like I know you said you had like 25 restaurants that worked really well, and like others, and like, well, is there any like lessons or anything that you've learned throughout that year and a half? Like maybe because like, you being a salesman and also a brand ambassador, like you're literally door knocking to sell your product and also your brand, right? So like, is there anything that kind of like stood out for you, or any lessons you've learned during that time at all, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if not, I mean, fucking shoot me, right? Should be learning something. So I mean, sales is all relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I also started to realize that I was really young. That I was a young pup, thinking I had known it all. But now you're in a sales role, like that's big. Mm-hmm. Like going from like a warehouse guy to a sales guy, like that's a transition.
It is. And
it's not one that a lot of people make. Sales it requires a certain type of personality, I think. I think it's also a skill. It's a learnable skill that anybody can learn and get better at for sure. But yeah, I learned a lot about myself. I learned, you know, that I really don't know it all. That sales, it's not always. I mean, a lot of the time you can get your foot in the door in sales with a lower price, but generally speaking, if you're in the same ballpark, I mean, if you do the math, I mean, we're talking about dollars and cents, right? So not every customer is going to buy from you if you're a little bit less or more expensive. Like that's not the only reason to purchase, but for people that are new to sales, that's what they always think it is. But people will buy from you based on value, right? What's the value that you provide? So service, you know, trustworthiness, you know, are you going to get the order? If you get it, are you going to put it in? Or is it going to get delivered? Are you going to have everything? Is your company reputable? Is the quality going to be good? Is it going to be consistent in the quality department? Is it going to be consistent in the service department? Are the trucks going to deliver on time? Is it going to be delivered on the proper day? Like, you know, there's so many things that you have to like, you know, build a relationship with the potential client to prove to them that, you know, yes, either you can deliver or you prove that you can't. And, you know, in that business, you don't get a lot of second chances because, you know, people are running a business. And if they get, you know, back ordered on something and, you know, they didn't have any forewarning about it or whatever, you know, it's like they're running a business. Yeah. You know, and I didn't even necessarily realize that back then until really, I mean, I did. I knew that kind of logically, but I didn't know that inherently up until recently when I'm been running the shop, where it's like, fuck, if I don't get something, I don't have something to sell my client. I got to 86 that item. That's fine. Like they're not going to know, but I know that, hey, that's like, you know, 5 pounds of snapper or 10 pounds of sockeye that I wouldn't have sold or couldn't sell because I didn't have it, you know? Yeah. So that's where couriers come into place and apologies and right. You know, but that's one of the big challenges with food distribution is like, especially with seafood, is like availability, preparation. Like, is the fish going to be ready? If it's ready, is it going to be fresh? You know, so it's like always like it's a very hot potato business. It's like things have to be fresh with seafood. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Those are some things I learned.
All good lessons that you've learned, I'm sure, obviously.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice. And then so like going back to like, you know, the store here on West, is it West Broadway?
West 4th?
West 4th, sorry. My bad. Like how long have you worked there like full time? Like when did you transition in being like, remember when I first met you, like you're the boss, like you're the guy running, like when did you transition into that role and just like that was your full-time job? And it is your full-time job,
right? Yeah. I came back last January.
Okay, cool.
So I've been in that role about 13 months.
13 months, nice. And how has it been since you started?
Dude, it was a fucking gong show when I got there.
Let's hear it. Let's hear the gong show.
So if you don't mind not throwing people under the bus.
Yeah, you don't have to say names.
But you know, the guy who was there before, he was good. He cared. But I think, you know, and that's another thing that I've learned is like, if you own the business, you're thinking long term.
Yeah, you have to.
You don't start a business to fucking stop doing business in 3 months. Right. So there was a lot of Band-Aid fixes. And I'm not blaming anybody because that's just where the person who was in charge was at. They weren't an owner. They weren't thinking long term. But man, the plumbing was all corroded. One of the sinks wasn't even working. He kept the sink off because it would leak. But apparently, because he told me one time, he would turn it on when he saw the inspection lady coming. So it's like just things you cringe at, right? And for me, I'm a very like, hey, we got to do things fucking properly. Like we're dealing with people's food and safety and health. And honestly, we hardly ever even use that sink. Yeah. But to me, if there's going to be a fucking sink there, it should fucking work. You know?
Yeah, that's true. You're
right. It's like, fuck, why is there a sink there and it doesn't fucking work? You can't use that fucking sink?
Yeah.
What if I got to thaw some squid?
Yeah.
I only got a couple, 2-3 sinks.
Yeah.
I'm running a seafood shop, you know, like why would I be down a sink? Why would I be down a water faucet? That's a tool.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You need that.
I need not only like safety aside, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Right? So there was that. There was like 3 electrical hazards, one potentially fatal, right? With the neon sign. It was like totally melted this thing, and my electrician guy that I brought in. He's like, dude, like, this is fucking, it's a good thing I was checking this and did all my safety precautions, because somebody touched the sign, like just touched the metal sign on the outside. They could have fucking probably got it.
Damn.
Right. So there's a couple of things like that. There's like tile, just a whole bunch of stuff. Like, and then there was like operational things. There was like the hand punch, the biometric finger scanner thing, the thing that you used to punch in. It was like in this like weird spot in the front where the customers could see it. And like, it was just like really poorly, the space wasn't utilized. It was I kind of think of it like sterile. It was a very sterile environment. There's no personality. Yeah. The walls were white. There was nothing on them. There was like just like no character in the place.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's what happens when the owners are absent for 20 years, because we were running the main business, which was our headquarters in Richmond. Right. It's like, can't blame people. That's on me. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's another thing that I've learned is taking responsibility for things. Even if it's not yours, you take responsibility for it. How could I have helped that? If one of my guys is late, that's on me. It's not his fault. I mean, it is his fault, but it's my fault.
Yeah.
How could I have avoided that? Well, I could have let them go before that happened. I could have been a better example. I think I'm a pretty good example, but I could have been a better one. I could have like reminded them, knowing that it's like a regular occurrence, or something, like
small things like that. Yeah.
My responsibility. So anyway, it was just a bit of a shit show. Product selection wasn't the greatest. I mean, you think of a fish market, you should walk into this place and see some options. Like there was kind of like the 5 staple options. It was like salmon, cod, spring salmon, halibut, snapper, steelhead, and maybe some blackhead.
That's it.
Right? And some ahi, frozen ahi. And then like the other stuff, like the clams and the mussels and stuff. But it's like, fuck, when I started coming in there, I was bringing Arctic Turbo. Arctic turbot, fuck, it's nice fish. Mm-hmm. I can't get it right now, but oh my God, it's beautiful stuff. Right? But it's a little heavy in the freaking price department, right? It's like I have to sell for $45 a pound.
Wow.
But I got a good buy on it, so I was selling in the 20s, and it was like, dude, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And I just bring stuff in. I bring in fresh ahi tuna every once in a while, fresh sturgeon.
That's cool.
Like just different things,
Right.
People like to change it up sometimes.
Yeah.
Uni, I love uni.
Yeah, uni's so good.
I started a poke bar.
Yeah, I saw
poke
that.
bowls.
That's awesome.
Like, fuck, we have a seafood market. Why can't I make you a seafood fucking bowl?
No, that's true. It's I think that's the really cool thing about, running a seafood store, I would say, or even like any kind of like food store, is like you can, well, especially seafood, I should say, you can always bring in like random different items, like you were saying, like uni or like octopus or like any other things.
There are 3 types of octopus.
I didn't know that.
They only had 1. It's like I got cuttlefish now too. I got all kinds of
But that's
shit.
cool because, people are going to walk in here and they're going to get a different experience. Like, oh my God, like they have this. Like, what are they going to have next time?
I wish I had more freezer space, man. I'd carry a whole bunch. Anyway, I'm having fun there. It's
Good.
a lot of fun.
Good.
And, we're growing business back generally. Because I feel like we were the only market in town for like many years.
Mm-hmm.
Like through probably the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s kind of thing. Like we were kind of like the go-to, like we're kind of an establishment, but I feel like over the last 20 years, like a lot of the youthful people, like people don't necessarily know about us, especially since social media. Like I've been working to build the social media up.
No, you're not having, you've been doing.
I've been,
you've been doing it. You've been killing it.
But where have we been the last 12 years? And that's okay. That's behind us now. But it's like, there's a lot, I'm realizing a lot of millennials, a lot of Zoomers, they don't know who the fuck we are. Mm-hmm. It's like, so let's get out more. That's one of the reasons why I bought the poke bar. And I'm like, how can I appeal to a younger crowd?
For sure. And it's just being creative and different and really standing out. And like I've been saying, like you've been posting your videos on TikTok. I've been liking all of them, everyone I've been seeing. And it's just like, it's so cool because it's like, with social media. Like,
are you on the talk?
Yeah.
Shit, most people are on the gram.
No, you gotta do both, dude.
I make them for TikTok.
Yeah.
And then I just repost them.
I know you do
Instagram.
because you can see the TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But like, honestly, it's like the fact that you're putting in the work and it's going to take time. But it's like, I mean, it's funny, at my job, I'm not going to get into like what my full-time job is.
What is your full-time job?
I work as a recruiter consultant. I can't say the name of the company just for like, I don't know, the reasons. Whatever.
Liability.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like we were talking to a huge, like one of the biggest shipping lines companies in the world. and we were talking to their HR person, and super lovely lady, and she was talking about how we're trying to attract more younger generation because, you know, eventually all those people that have been working there for X amount of years, like they're going to be gone, and who's going to replace these people, right? So it's like, what are you going to do to stand out in the market that's coming up next, right? So that's exactly what you're doing, which is amazing, right? Like, and that's the first step of many things. And like, I can think, like, this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast is like, I mean, obviously I'm interviewing like chefs and mushroom pickers, fishermen, but I really like business, right? I really got into this, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because like, you're like, you know, you're literally running a business and you're figuring things out and you're doing your social media, and it's just like, for me, it's fascinating.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but it will pay off, right? And it's just like really trying to think about a game plan, and you're absolutely like,
well, so
you're on the right
for me,
step.
I'm blessed, right? Like I have brothers, and we're all in the business.
That's great.
So my oldest brother's
Yeah. So
at the helm.
who does what? Let's do that quickly.
Excuse me. Yeah.
No worries.
Is that shrimp sandwich I eat here on the way here?
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, side stripes. Yeah, so my oldest brother George is the CEO. He's kind of like the steady sort of leader, smart guy. You know, he's probably the smartest of the bunch.
Okay.
Although my youngest brother's pretty smart too. Makes deals. Does a lot of the supply stuff. We used to bring in. We were actually the main supplier of sockeye for many years.
Cool.
So we would bring in like most of the sockeye salmon that was in Vancouver. We'd bring in like millions of pounds, and then we would sell it to the other distributors.
Right.
So now, like, we don't bring in quite so much because it ties up a lot of capital.
Right.
It's a very capital intensive thing. Like basically the season, let's just say sockeye salmon, the brunt of the season is July and August.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to kind of buy up what the producers were freezing in September, what you're going to need right through till June next year. And you got to forecast it so that you don't have extra, because the value of last year's fish is going to drop dramatically once the next year's fish comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a really unique industry in a lot of different ways. So anyway, so George does a lot of the sort of the bigger deals and stuff like that. Mike is the next oldest, and he is our head of procurement.
Okay, cool.
So he kind of oversees, I think, about 4 or 5 buyers, and he manages a couple accounts too, a couple of the bigger accounts. So he does a lot of that, and then my younger brother is sort of head of our fleet sourcing, is what we call it. So that's kind of a procurement, but it's sort of its own department where he's dealing with about 40 to 50 fishermen, vessels from Alaska down to BC, and managing and selling off the quota that we either own or lease, or just other people's quota, and moving that, mostly like albacore, sablefish, halibut. Those are kind of the main 3, and then like a little bit of salmon and rockfish.
Okay, interesting.
And yeah, so he does that. And I'm actually going to be getting back into doing some sales. So I'm going to be managing the store part-time.
Okay.
And I'm going to get back into restaurant sales because they really want me back doing that. So I'm going to be super fucking busy, especially because I'm also launching our version 3 of our store's website.
Ooh,
so
okay.
One of the things when I took over last January, I launched a website with a local startup company. And it's going okay, but you couldn't measure the so one of the things that I learned in my experience learning about marketing and my podcasting experience and YouTubing and learning the ClickFunnels and all that shit is that you need to be able to know when somebody goes to your checkout page and when they go to the thank you page. The thank you page meaning they just placed an order. Now it takes them to the screen after they placed an order. If they didn't place an order, it won't take them to the thank you page because there's nothing to thank them for.
Right. Yeah.
So those 2 pages are like vastly important marketing pages, because now there's a cookie or like a little whatever you call it. It's a cookie, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's a little it's a temporary file that gets inserted on your IP address.
Okay.
That lets you know that person was on your fucking website on the thank you page.
Oh, I see.
So now you can retarget them for ads.
Right. Yeah,
and so this first one didn't do that. Otherwise, it was a great company, except that also the website was very cookie cutter. So every single website that they worked with, every company they worked with, the websites all looked exactly the same. So that kind of sucked. And I was like, okay, fuck that analytics thing. Like, we got to be able to freaking measure.
Yeah.
who's going to the checkout and why aren't they checking out, or who's going to the thank you page, and how can we retarget those clients, because those are clients,
right? That you're
so
missing
prospects
out,
or clients. There's a whole journey, customer journey online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody is
no, it's just don't worry about it.
Okay. It's one of those things, yeah. So that was really important to me because I understood that, how important that was. So then I started looking at doing a Shopify, and we set that all up, and I think we still have both websites actually running,
Okay.
like simultaneously right now.
Okay.
But we just never really like advertised either of them. So one of them's like the actual website, one of them's like some weird URL. But we just oddly still get, because of the SEO works.
Okay, well, if
we
it
oddly
works.
still get like the random order from them. And but the thing with Shopify is they don't allow you to do a catch weight. So if somebody orders a pound of sockeye and you cut it and it's 1.2 pounds, you're going to take a 0.2 hit.
Right.
And that might not be the biggest deal on one order, but when you scale that,
That's a lot.
that's going to add up. So that just clearly wouldn't work unless you start doing more like pre-portioned and stuff like that. But then, you know, it's a market, right? So it's like you gotta have a little flexibility there. So that didn't quite work. And then I found one of our good client friends in Toronto, Hooked Inc. I was talking to Dan, and shout out to Dan. You know, he's got a great situation there, and I found out he was working with this other company, and so I started working with the guy Cheval, and really happy. So we're just about to launch. Like the products are done, we're filling out the photos, we've done the descriptions, we've got I think about 15 or 20 blog posts in the can. So we're gonna start putting out like one a day for the first probably 14 days or something like that, just to get because the Google crawlers take 6 months to start working.
Wow. Yeah, it takes some time
Right.
for it.
And so it's kind of a pain that we didn't have Cheval 12 months ago, but learning curves and everything. And so we're going to be able to have that analytics piece so we can actually start doing some targeted marketing campaigns, which is going to, you know, hopefully work in conjunction with the TikTok and social media. So that there's these funnels, right? It's like you got to get people into your world, your community. So that's kind of like what's going on in my world. It's like I've got this team, building them up, managing the store, making sure the products are fresh, making sure the workers are like, you know, doing their sales job. It requires some salesmanship to work even as a seafood clerk behind a counter.
Yeah.
Requires some certain level of seafood ability or sales ability. And then there's the website piece. And then, yeah, so I'm going to be getting into some restaurants. I've been talking to some of my chef buddies that I've been dealing with in the past, and they're kind of like ready to go, and some of them just they want to work with me again. And so, you know, but I've also got 2 kids, and I just moved in a new freaking house, and it's like there's a lot going on, bro.
Hey, it's part of life.
But it's fun. I like being challenged.
That's good, and you're keeping yourself, you know, active, which is great. And look, like I'm so excited to listen a little bit more about, you know, your the future plans of this, the new website and everything, and the growth of the company. And I'm really super stoked about that. But besides that, like how can people find out about you or Seven Seas Fish Market? Is there like maybe a Instagram handle that you can share with the viewers or listeners or whatever?
Yeah, so Instagram is at 7 Seas Fish Market.
Okay,
That's
cool.
the number 7.
Okay.
SEAS Fish Market. And then our website is 7seasfishmarket.com, or actually .ca, but I have the .com too, and that's going to redirect to the .ca, but I was told that blogging and the SEO will work a lot better if I use the .ca domain.
Okay, so
That's
what's
like
the final
primary.
name? Let's maybe say it one more time.
7seasfishmarket.ca.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, honestly, Jamie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories. Guys, thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you guys next time on Table 604 Podcast.
I never got to ask you about your dad, bro.
Oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. You'll learn next time. Next time.
Come on.
Next episode, brother. Next episode.